Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thanks so much for joining this webinar today. We are very happy and excited to introduce you to our recently launched AI Rights add-on within Article Galaxy, really at that article level. Before we dive in, a couple of quick housekeeping items you probably already know about. So you're on listen-in mode, no need to worry about like background noise whatsoever. We do have chat enabled if you have any technical questions, or if you have any questions regarding the webinar. We'll have dedicated time towards the end of the presentation to make sure that we answer all of those. As soon as they come up, feel free on Zoom, like down below where it says Q&A. You can add your questions there, and you should also have the option to upvote questions if you see any other questions that are also relevant to you, so we can make sure that we tackle the ones first that are most relevant to all of you. And then also this webinar is being recorded, and I'll be sending an email probably about an hour after the webinar is over to you all, so you can rewatch it, share it with your colleagues, and just have it as a reference. Okay, with that being said, let's move on to the next slide here. Let's take a quick look at what we're covering within about the next 45, 50 minutes. So in just a moment, I'll introduce the other friendly faces that you can see on the call today. From there, we'll talk about that kind of big copyright problem that we see that the AI revolution has brought with it and some of the challenges that come with it. Then we'll introduce article level AI rights. And then really the heart of the webinar will be the live demonstration. So you can see firsthand what that AI rights add-on looks like in Article Galaxy. And as I mentioned, we'll have dedicated time to answer your questions. Okay, so our panelists for today, we have Chris Atwood on. He's the VP of Product Development at Research Solutions and most importantly at Article Galaxy. So he really is the person to talk to regarding Article Galaxy. Then we also have Chris Bendel on. He is the VP of Product Strategy and really an expert all things AI and TDM. And you might recognize me. My name is Julia Heeson. I'm on the marketing team at Research Solutions, and I'm always your moderator. Okay, I think with that being said, Chris Bendel, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks very much, Julia, and welcome everybody. So let's dive in here and first talk a little bit about the key issue that we are trying to solve with the solution that we released a few weeks ago, allowing you to not only acquire AI rights for content, but also to manage these AI rights in a way that your users can immediately understand and see when they have rights granted, and what those rights entail. So, since Gen AI hit the scene, and more AI-based solutions have been appearing, there has been generally a bit of, first of all, from the major publishers, a bit of a step back in terms of trying to understand what this meant for the content that they publish and how to ensure copyright compliance of that content in a world of many different types of AI tools. We know from surveys that have been done that many users and researchers out there, whether they're in academia or in a corporate setting, are increasingly using AI tools for a large variety of different use cases in connection with scientific information, and especially with peer-reviewed journal content. However, the situation from a copyright point of view is that most publishers restrict the use of their content with generative AI tools, and especially for the training of generative AI models. So there is this copyright issue. However, this copyright issue is not very clear to everybody. You, as people dealing with this type of content and with copyright issues in your daily work, are probably well aware, but many of your users are not aware, first of all, that there are restrictions in terms of copyright, in terms of conditions to allow upload of content, especially journal content, to generative AI tools. And because this is not understood, it is very hard and difficult to, explain this to users. But when you do, also, the next thing is for them to ask, okay, so there is this issue, so what do we do now? And it's then, of course, in addition, quite complicated to be able to negotiate with all publishers to acquire the required AI rights that they may need for the different use cases that they have. So this is one part of what we're trying to solve with this solution. In addition, there are various sources, places where AI rights can be acquired. First of all, there is open access content, which generally, when published under a CC BY license, can be used with generative AI tools for different use cases such as analysis and extraction of information and summarization, etc. However, increasingly, publishers are publishing content under a CC BY NC license, which stands for non-commercial. And from the point of view of publishers, this means that anyone in a corporate setting, in a company whose ultimate goal is creating revenue on the research and the products that are built upon that research, that additional rights should actually be reacquired for using that open access content in a generative AI tool. Other sources of rights, AI rights, since last year from the Copyright Clearance Center and from the Copyright Licensing Agency, both have updated their annual copyright licenses to include language that covers AI use rights. So there's language there that clearly says that users can use content which is covered by those licenses for use in a generative AI tool, or indeed for training AI models for internal purposes. However, many of the at least major science, technology, and medical publishers have opted out of that specific language around AI rights in those licenses. And so, it's needed to actually check whether or not the titles, the journal titles, and content you're interested in is actually covered by those licenses. Increasingly, since especially last year, larger publishers have started providing AI rights directly to customers. This can be quite a lengthy process and quite some negotiations. Also, each publisher is a little bit different. There's no real standardized terms, or especially no standardized pricing around AI rights. And so, for each publisher's negotiation, there is complexity there, and it's a time-consuming process. So what we have set out to do is to try and understand the general use cases that customers have and look at ways to provide solutions to them. When we look at text and data mining and AI rights solutions, use cases, there are three very general ones. Of course, within your organizations, there are a big variety of different personas, different roles, who have different needs and are using AI tools for a wide variety of use cases. However, when you come down to the core of it, there's a few sort of general use cases that need to be covered in terms of AI rights. The first one highlighted here, and the one where our solution is focused currently, is enabling researchers, corporate researchers, to upload peer-reviewed journal content to a generative AI tool to search through that information, to analyze it, to extract data from that content, and to summarize that content or multiple articles. The second use case is focused on focus on the use case of wanting to train AI models for internal purposes. So potentially for creating, a drug development large language model, for instance. And the third one is actually around sort of the big technology companies who want to train AI models because they want to distribute them, sell them to everyone in the world. We've been talking to publishers about the first two use cases. We have sort of defined what both use cases would allow in terms of permitted uses. For now, most publishers who have agreed to participate in the solution only want to participate in the first use case at this point. But it's evolving, the landscape. And not only do we expect more publishers to join to enable the acquisition of AI rights through our tool, so in line with the first use case, but I think in the next year we'll see also more publishers willing to allow us to also provide AI rights for training AI models. But for now, that is still something in development, and what we've gone live with focuses on that first use case. So coming back to a point that I made a little bit earlier, and that is, while you may well be aware of these issues, generally, many of your users do not. And generally, your users do not realize that actually when they are about to upload a journal article to a generative AI tool, this is actually kind of the decision process they should be following before doing so. And it is quite complicated because of those different sources of AI rights. So on the left-hand side, there is the open access source, and then being able to understand quickly what is it published under a CC BY license or indeed under a non-commercial open access license? Or if you're following down the right side of this decision tree, there is, first of all, the annual copyright licenses from reproduction rights organizations like the CCC and CLA, as I just mentioned. But also, as mentioned, many of those rights are not covered. But many publishers, are not yet covered by those licenses. Then there is the direct subscriptions, deals that you may make with a publisher for AI rights. And then finally, on the right-hand side here near the bottom is where we and our solution comes in, allowing people to acquire AI rights from participating publishers on the article-by-article level. But not only was the goal to enable that acquisition of AI rights, but really also to understand and quickly understand for the user when AI rights have been granted already and what they can do with those AI rights. So you'll see in a moment during the demo exactly how it works, but essentially from participating publishers, it's now possible when searching for an article in Article Galaxy to see immediately whether there are AI rights already that have been granted, or when AI rights are available for acquisition. And then instead of just purchasing access to the journal article, to the PDF, it is possible now to also acquire that PDF with AI rights in place. Or indeed, if you already have access to that PDF, to just purchase the AI rights on top. And the other aspect of this that you will see during the demo is that other key need that we wanted to solve in terms of enabling users to immediately understand when they're looking at an article within Article Galaxy, what rights they have been granted. So alongside the typical reuse rights, such as regulatory purposes or marketing purposes, you can now see that there have been rights granted also for, in this case, summarizing content in a generative AI solution. While, for participating publishers, you'll see this when articles have been purchased previously through Article Galaxy, but the other key thing is that when AI rights have been acquired directly from a publisher, we are also able to show those AI rights in the system, those AI rights entitlements here. And also, we will be showing also when rights have been acquired via, which are covered by an annual copyright license from a reproduction rights organization. So wherever rights have been granted, whatever the source was, the user can immediately see that rights have been granted and what specifically they can do with that content. All right, I think, oh yeah, one last and key point is what type of rights are we actually providing? So here is some detail around, what the permitted uses are. And the key parts are shown in bold. So what we are selling in terms of AI rights is the ability of the user to use a pre-trained artificial intelligence model to do various activities such as search and extract and analyze and summarize information from the content item. Critically, and it comes back to this point of pre-trained artificial intelligence model, critically, it is important that none of the data which is being extracted and identified is going to go back to the model for training purposes or improvement of the model, and that none of this data is permanently saved or stored by the model. Also critically, apart from this being focused on internal uses, is also this point C at the bottom that for any other sort of external reuse right purpose, such as regulatory submission or marketing, those separate reuse rights still need to be obtained. All right, so with that, I will now stop sharing and I'll hand over to Chris to walk you through what the UX looks like for our new solution.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. Let me share my screen here. Right, great. I'm just going to see if I can move that out of the way. Perfect. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for taking the time to meet with us. Chris just did a really great job of introducing AI rights and a lot of the fundamentals, and I always get the fun part of actually showing you how it works. So really, that's what I want to do today is introduce you to the things we've done in Article Galaxy. Chris talked a lot about these things and he showed some screenshots and some things there, but I'll show you the functionality and some of the features and some of the use cases that we'll talk about, that users today are using to find these rights and really how these rights are stored and how you can see them and interact and that sort of thing. So if I'm starting from the Article Galaxy homepage, I'm just going to perform a search here. This is just a kind of a generic search. I always search for peanut allergy, not important, but I'll search for that and I'll bring up some articles. We're going to look at some different interactions, different ways AI rights will be displayed and shown in Article Galaxy. But a lot of users come here first and they search for either a specific article or a topic. And we're really looking at a topic here. You can see with these results, I am finding an exact match for a specific article at the top. And then below, I have some additional articles. I'm doing this intentionally because I want to showcase a few things. The first article we see here is an article that I already own. It's something that I've previously acquired. I purchased it most likely, but we can see on that citation, we have the automatic AI rights granted to this article. This theme continues throughout Article Galaxy. So anytime a user acquires those rights in your organization, the rights will live with that citation. I just want to reiterate that this is something that lives with your organization. So if Chris Spindell on this call acquires an item with AI rights and we're part of the same company, those rights carry over to me as well. So it's built in for organizations. The example here, I already own the PDF and I can see those rights are here. If I scroll down a little bit more, we see an item here that doesn't have AI rights. Not every article will have AI rights available. Chris talked about some publishers not opting in yet. This is something that we're working on. We cover a pretty broad spectrum today already, but I wanted to showcase it just because there are some items that those rights aren't available for. If we come down a little bit more, I'm going to try to get both of these examples on my screen so you can see. We look at this item here, and this item is one where I can buy the PDF, I can rent the article, or I can get the PDF with AI rights. So I can really kind of make a decision on that, and I'll show you the process to this. The item below that is one, I already own the article, but I didn't get the AI rights. So for some of you, this may be a new option you want to enable on your account. You'll see articles you already own, but you don't have those rights yet. So these are just some examples of what users will see when they're looking at these AI rights. If I click on this item here, I'll get my menu over on my right-hand side, and we ask some questions on a lot of accounts that have things that, questions about how do you want to use the article, maybe some things about billing, that sort of stuff. But the bottom line is a user can click Get PDF with AI Rights. That order will be submitted. We'll deliver the PDF and confirm the AI rights automatically within this transaction that's happening. I'll show you more about how this carries through, but I just want you to kind of get an idea about how this plays out. You'll see there's other items in my list here as well that have AI rights or that I can purchase AI rights as we go along. So that gives you a little bit of an idea about user kind of searching for maybe a topic or even a specific article. A common thing we see a lot of users doing in Article Galaxy is they start from the homepage and they'll simply put in a DOI or maybe it's a PubMed ID, or they might navigate to our order form and do the same thing, but they'll search for a DOI. It's the same sort of concept here. This is just a single item. The user says, yeah, this is the item I want. This item is an open access article, and Chris was speaking to this a minute ago related to the CC BY designations versus the CC BY NC designations, and that can get pretty complicated. Article Galaxy has figured all of that out. It's done all the math for you, for the users. In this example, this item automatically covered. Those rights are already pre-granted because of its open access designation. If I want the PDF, I just click the button, PDF will serve up to me, and I'm on my way. So those are a couple examples where users will see these AI rights, but I want to show you a few other examples and places that users will be able to interact with these rights and really kind of see a broader perspective. One of those areas is in the user's order history. We've seen a pretty significant growth of users coming into their order history, reaccessing articles that they've already acquired, or maybe even doing things like checking reuse rights in here. But you can see these are some items I recently ordered, and I ordered them with AI rights. So all of that data is carrying through the system. I can see in my history, I already have those rights, they're in place. If I want to open that PDF, I can, and then use that article appropriately. If we scroll down just a little bit more and we look at this item at the bottom, we see I already have the PDF, I already acquired that particular article, but I didn't get the AI rights. If I want those AI rights, I can just one click, submit that order for those rights. I'll get a confirmation those rights have been granted, and then I'm on my way. And this will update from available to granted, and the user will see all of that seamlessly. Now, another place that I'll transition to you for you, and some accounts may not have this functionality. There's a few things I'll show that you may not have, you may not know that we offer. One of those things is an organization-wide PDF library. Here we call it company PDF library. So this is a library, it's managed by the rights you have to reuse literature, a whole bunch of things happen here, but it is PDFs that are available for your organization. And you can see the same theme coming through this PDF library. Each user will be able to look at any item in here. They can search, see if rights have been granted or if they're available, and they can acquire them if they need to, or if that's something that's of interest to them. So we could scroll through this list. We can see this third item, it's just not available. Those rights are not available. So not everything has those rights, but a really broad spectrum of content does have those rights. So I just want to show you some of the places. There's a few other areas I'd like to take a look at when it comes to looking for these rights. So you might have users that they might already have articles. They might know they have articles. They might have already looked at their order history. They can click on reuse rights here and look at those rights. We also have a reuse rights interface here, and I want to show you this interface. Some of you today might not license this. This is a very powerful tool. It's something that we recommend having in place with AI rights as well. Our reuse rights interface integrates with lots of different organizations like the Copyright Clearance Center's reuse portion, or the CLA, the Copyright Licensing Agency. It also integrates with direct publisher agreements you might have. So there's a lot happening here. I'm going to show you it, and it'll make a whole lot more sense if you're not familiar with it. But you might have users that have articles and they want to know, can I use this particular article with, some sort of AI tool? And that's typically going to be something that you have internally on your side already in place, whether that's Copilot or something like that. They can put in a DOI, they can put in a whole bunch of options like the journal title, that sort of thing, and they can check the reuse rights. So I'm just grabbing an example here of an item. And what we see here is this is just an article related to immunotherapy. And below this, I can see different intended uses. So, a lot of what we've talked about in the past is, can I use this for, regulatory submission or some sort of medical affairs use? But what you'll see here is there's a section below for generative AI. For this article, the AI rights are available. The user can select this, and then they can obtain those rights there. So this interface is a way for a user that might have an item and they want to look at that particular PDF and say, okay, can I use this for the purposes that I need to? I want to show you a couple other examples just so you can see a user may come to this reuse interface, put in a different DOI, could be a publication name. There's a few other options like PubMed IDs. This is an example of an item that's granted. So the user will see those rights are granted. They don't need to do anything else. If they want, they can email this information. They can print this page so they have it for, kind of a confirmation purpose or any sort of legal need that they might have. But they'll see this information automatically when they come here. So this article is one. Those rights were purchased or acquired, and now that they're already in place. Another example, just to give you a few more, and the last one I'll talk about in just a minute, but I want to show you this article. This is an item from PLOS One. If you're familiar with PLOS One, it's a really truly open access publication. It's just a good example to talk about. Most people are familiar with PLOS One. It is a CC BY publication. And we can see here with this publication, really reuse across the board is granted. So you can use it for generative AI. Article Galaxy has that information stored automatically. So those articles that are a CC BY open access in nature, they're automatically shown and automatically available in Article Galaxy with this AI functionality we're talking about. So this button, this tag will show up throughout the system when the AI rights stuff is enabled. So it just gives you an idea about kind of some of the functionality, different places users may interact with AI rights, how they may want to go search for those AI rights or any reuse rights directly. Chris spoke about some customers will have these rights directly with publishers. So you all may make an agreement with a publisher. Maybe it's someone like Elsevier, maybe it's someone like Wiley. I'm kind of going to show an example here with the American Medical Association, but I just want to showcase to you that Article Galaxy is able to bring in any agreements you might have directly. It could be agreements with something like the CLA as well, but we're able to bring that information in here and then layer in those rights. So the American Medical Association right now is a publisher that we don't have the purchasable rights to today, but you may create or have a direct agreement with them. And we can layer that data in here and showcase to users that in this example, they would be able to use the article for AI rights. Now, I don't know that the American Medical Association is doing this today. I am just kind of using this as an example that we can bring in additional data, additional licenses that you might have to really provide a full spectrum or full view into all of the AI rights your organization might have or might obtain. So I hope that makes sense. I hope I did a decent job explaining that. The last piece I want to talk about is related to Article Galaxy references. Some of you may license references with us. You may have this, some of you may not. But our references tool is a literature management solution that integrates directly with Article Galaxy. So it integrates with any PDFs or articles you purchase, or really any articles that a user might obtain through Article Galaxy. And all of this AI rights stuff we've been talking about directly integrates into references. So what we're looking at on my screen, there's a lot of text and there's a lot happening, but we're on my organization's PDF library, and I'm viewing it in kind of this Excel sort of like layout or table kind of format. And what I can see here is an overview of the first 100 or so or 50 items in my library. And I can see these blue check marks, and that indicates all of the items where those rights are granted. The lighter blue check mark indicates the items where those rights are available. So users can come in here and search as well. They could also move things to folders, and they can really look at those rights in a much broader kind of perspective. And they might create a folder. I have one here for cystic fibrosis. And they might move items into a folder to start organizing things and understanding, okay, these are all the things I can use with AI rights. And you can see here, I've got the first 5 are granted. I have one here just not available. And then the next 2 are things that I can acquire those rights to. So it's just a way for users to organize this, really get a good visual of these things, and then, kind of start making decisions around, how to use these items and what's appropriate with these tools, AI tools. So I wanted to introduce you to the different places we're integrating in Article Galaxy. Obviously, you can see it in our search, whether that's just directly from this homepage or any place a user's looking at a citation or an article. They'll also have that information in their order history, their organization's PDF library, and they're going to have access to that reuse interface if that's something that's licensed, where you can really get a broad picture of the AI rights and how to use articles and which ones are okay and that sort of stuff. Chris's last slide talks about, the appropriate use and that sort of thing. I didn't showcase a lot of that just for the sake of time here, but within Article Galaxy, you'll see there's some tooltips, there's some information that tells users what they can and cannot do with articles. But that really just gives you guys kind of the broad perspective, all the things that Chris talked about and how it's all layered into Article Galaxy, really as a single source for users to be able to understand how they can use those articles for AI rights and other rights. I am going to stop sharing and hand it back over to Julia. I'm sure there's some questions, but I'll stop sharing for now, and then we'll move on to the next portion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for that overview. Super insightful. I do see that we have some questions already. Before we get to those, I just wanted to call out one more thing. Or Chris, you want to speak to this one first?
Okay, yeah, so we've talked about Article Galaxy today and the new solution that we have there to help you acquire and understand when you have AI rights in place. Of course, not the topic of today, but probably you've seen other webinars on Scite as well. So in Scite, we've already negotiated with publishers and have done mining of full text content and are representing some of that content in Scite Assistant, which is a generative AI tool. So yeah, another solution that we have that allows you to use generative AI tools such as the Scite Assistant to look at full text content from journal articles. Okay, so we will now move on to the questions. Of course, any of you who want to, think about this more, discuss this more, can reach out to your account managers or to researchsolutions.com/sales.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll add that link in the chat here just to make it easy Also, if you don't know who your account manager is, you can also reach out via that same form. If you fill that out, and we'll make sure to connect you to the right person to discuss AI rights, how to add it, how that works. Or if you're new to Article Galaxy, of course, yeah, to learn more about it. Okay, now my favorite part, questions. Okay, the first one is, for corporate, the AI rights, once purchased, can they be used for multiple projects, or do we need to purchase AI rights per project?
So the AI rights that we are providing can be used for multiple projects within your organization, for multiple users within your organization. So those rights accompany the PDF, the article that you've acquired, wherever you can reuse that article. Therefore, you can reuse the AI rights as well.
Awesome, thank you. Can you search in the order form page for an article and then purchase only the AI rights?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you can purchase the AI rights directly within the system. Absolutely. Really, the design is around getting the PDF and the AI rights. The best place to get just the AI rights is directly from that reuse interface that I showed you. But if the PDF is already owned, the system will know it, and it will only let you acquire those AI rights if they're available. So there are ways to just get directly the AI rights if that's what you want to do. That's best done through the reuse UI. But if it's something you already own, then it will queue you and say, hey, you only need the AI rights. Hopefully that answers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, and if there are any follow-up questions, feel free to add them here.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question. Do the rights ever expire?
No, the AI rights that we are selling within Article Galaxy are perpetual for that article, in the individual article.
Awesome. Can you share a list of publishers who are participating in the Research Solutions service?
Yes, we can follow up and provide provide that list. So currently we are covering around just over 15% of the non-open access journal content which is out there. Internally, we aim to expand that to 20% by the end of this year and 30% by the middle of next year. So far, some of the bigger publishers that have signed on are Wiley, Karger, Royal Society of Chemistry, Sage, and also the Royal Society. But yeah, we are constantly talking to publishers, and so and especially with the Frankfurt Book Fair coming up in a few weeks, we expect to sign on a few more publishers already in the next month or two.
Awesome. Yeah, and I've made a comment of your name here, so I'll make sure that our team follows up with you. Okay, the next question is, how does the practical implementation work? How much technical work is required from our IT department to integrate this AI add-on to our existing Article Galaxy setup?
It's really seamless. It's really easy. It's just really a matter of turning a few things on our side. All of the things I showed you, they just happen automatically once these things are enabled. I would say if there's any kind of complexity, which is not, there typically isn't too much, is if there's any direct integrations we need to do with publishers. So maybe you have some rights directly with publishers already. That's actually usually really easy to do as well. If there's some additional integration with a third party like the Copyright Clearance Center or something, that may involve a little bit more work. But typically this is something that's enabled very, very quickly once we have all of the agreement stuff done.
Awesome, thanks. Is there an API to bulk query, say, a list of DOIs to learn about their AI rights?
That's such a great question. I'm so thankful that this was asked, because we didn't talk about API or any of that sort of stuff in here. And we know there's a lot of practical need for a variety of reasons. You can imagine organizations have tools that they've created or things that they've done, and they really want to use those tools on their side, but they need to know the rights. Simple answer is yes. We have bulk querying and then single use querying available. So that's a conversation for sure, because there's some technical things if integrating with APIs, but this is all available. Fundamentally, you can imagine it like I showed it. All of that functionality is available via API.
Awesome. Yeah, if you'd like to learn more about the API, you can use that same link that I sent in the chat earlier, and I'd be happy to continue the conversation there.
Yeah.
If you add in contracted AI rights, do you lose the ability to see the other right options without the contract?
I think the question, if I understand it correctly, is related to what I showed in the reuse interface. Assuming I'm right with that, I mean, the answer is no. A lot of times organizations will make direct agreements with publishers. A common one is related to medical affairs use. So maybe it's a sort of a reactive need from a healthcare professional, that sort of thing. So people like you may work with a publisher, say, hey, I need that right. We need to layer that in. All of that gets layered into Article Galaxy. And if you obtain AI rights, that'll all be layered in as well into that reuse interface. And then any rights that we can offer to sell, those will automatically layer in as well. So I hope that answers the question. I think that's what was being asked. But if not, we're happy to follow up and discuss it some more.
Yeah, I think there's like a second part to that question
Okay.
as well, which is how would it work if only one group in an organization has contracted rights and another one doesn't?
Well, there's different ways to configure an account or accounts. So we would want to have a conversation about that, understand a little bit more. I could totally see there might be things like maybe a group in the US has rights, but maybe not in Europe. So that's a conversation to discuss and sort out, but there certainly are ways to do these things within Article Galaxy.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I love all the questions here today. Could you say more about the state of conversations or roadmap for being able to use content for AI training? I know that's dependent on individual publisher negotiations, but any general insight you could provide would be great.
Yeah, so we actually already sort of defined what the permitted uses would look like in regards to AI training. So far, of the publishers that have signed up for selling AI rights, yeah, 2 of them did indicate that they would be fine with us also providing the rights for AI training. But many of the others, it's this year at least is a little bit too early for them. Things are evolving now quite quickly. So I expect the number of publishers who are willing for us to provide AI rights for training purposes will increase. And therefore, I think, as far as our roadmap goes, once we have enough, I think sometime probably during the first half of next year, we'll be looking at how to support the acquisition of those AI rights for training purposes via Article Galaxy. I think what's critical there is that, generally such projects deal with higher volumes of content. So yeah, the ability to bulk query and bulk purchase those rights. We'll be looking at that sort of user experience. But what is also critical for such projects is being able to define, that group of content that you want to use for that project. And so, yeah, there are potentially other search and discovery tools that might be leveraged for that. But there are other sort of developments on the horizon. The horizon, is not actually too far in the future in terms of just maybe potentially a few months. So technologies such as model context protocols, where we or others have done the work of chunking up journal article content and to make it easier and indexed it to make it easier for AIs to search through and then identify exactly sort of the corpus of content you want for such a project would be sort of part of that user experience, as well as agreeing with the publishers what the actual business model should be in terms of remuneration for those AI training rights. So this is sort of, we're thinking about this all the time. And I would say, during next year, can provide more clarity when we will be providing AI rights for training purposes via the solution.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. Good question. Creative Commons is coming out with AI rights called Signals in 2026. Are you aware of this, and will you integrate this into the system?
So yeah, we've heard about that. We still need to understand exactly how, what that really means. But I assume, once, this is something that we can also look to surface within the system, and to ensure that users therefore know what this means in terms of what they're allowed to do with that content.
Awesome. Okay, I see one more question here. Our legal team is worried about liability if researchers use content with AI tools and somehow violate the terms. Does your system provide any audit trail or documentation we could use to demonstrate due diligence in case of publisher disputes?
One thing I did showcase in our reuse interface kind of lives throughout Article Galaxy. I showed kind of the main interface. But one thing that you may have noticed, I briefly talked about, is there is the ability to do things like save those rights. So someone could actually kind of almost take a screenshot in effect of those rights to that article, save that with any item. They can also do things like email those rights, so they can confirm that at that date, this time, those rights were available. So that sort of information is something that they can kind of store or keep with these records. Some of our users that are doing things with like for regulatory purposes or even medical information, they're doing exactly that. So that may help with that. I mean, we would definitely be interested to know more. As this starts to expand and grow and bring on more publishers, I think the information will become more available. But I'd love to have conversation around how you'd like to see that audit trail or see that saved. You can see in references we do show that information. So if you saw that or remember, you can kind of see that information is there. So that might help as well. But love to talk more on that if that's helpful.
Awesome. Great. Well, it looks like we've answered all questions. This is the last chance to add any here. Also, if any questions come afterwards, you know where to reach us. Feel free to send an email to where my email came from about the webinar. Reach out via that link that I added. Or, of course, you can always contact your account manager, who would be happy to answer any additional questions. With that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for spending this time with us. We do appreciate you being on here today. Thank you so much to both of the Chris's on the call for explaining AI rights and introducing us to it. And yeah, hope to see you on some future webinar. I'll be there, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.